The White House has sent Congress its first rescission bill. It's a proposal to cancel funds that lawmakers have already appropriated. Now, this provision was created under Title 10 of the 1974 Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act. Now, rescission bills, like the reconciliation measure that we've been talking about for months, enjoy expedited treatment in the Senate and can pass with a simple majority vote, bypassing the 60-vote filibuster threshold. Now, this particular package that the White House has sent over today would authorize many of the House Freedom Caucus's DOGE spending cuts, like defunding NPR, PBS, and certain foreign aid packages. Well, yesterday, the House Freedom Caucus urged House leadership to bring the bill immediately to the floor for a vote this week. Well, joining us now is Congressman Andrew Clyde, who represents Georgia's 9th Congressional District. He serves on both the Appropriations and Budget Committee, and he is a member of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman Clyde, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, Tony. Great to be with you.
And I assume you've gotten over the jet lag, just getting back from Israel.
Yes, I tell you what, 7 hours is a fair bit of jet lag, and it takes. I'm not quite used to that, but I think I'm over it by now.
I think this was your first trip. I read to Israel, and I know you met with the Prime Minister and other officials. Before we jump into the rescission package, I just want to ask you. I know that the issue of Iran comes up because every time he meets with anyone, that issue's top of concern for Israel. The President Trump, reiterating that Iran's not going to have the enriched uranium that they want to hold on to. That has to be good news to Israel, does it not?
Yes, I think so. Very much so, actually, because Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. They're a very strong sponsor of terrorism across the world, with at least 3 proxy terrorist organizations for which they're funding that's coming against Israel. And so, that's good news for Israel. But, the Iranians are incredibly good negotiators and have in mind the destruction of Israel. And that can never be allowed to happen. And so we just have to keep that in mind in everything that, in every negotiation that's going on with Iran. They do not need, nuclear power or nuclear in any way, shape, or form. They have plenty of natural gas and everything else that they need to sustain Iran.
Now, yesterday, actually, your traveling partner, Congressman Marlin Stutzman, was on the program. We were discussing the same thing. My sense is, just in my conversations, and I'm going to actually have Carolyn Glick on a little later in the program, an advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is that the Israelis are getting a little antsy about how long these negotiations are going on, because each day that this goes on, Iran gets closer to having the capacity to deliver a nuclear weapon.
That's correct. And, I think what we have seen time and time again is that Iran is of the mind to delay. If they can delay long enough where they feel that they have the potential to build a nuclear weapon, then they will have won. And we can't allow that. They'll be doing things behind the scenes that they will never admit. And we just have to understand that we need either something very concrete very quickly, or Iran will play the very long game, and they'll achieve what they want to, and that can never be allowed to happen.
All right, Congressman Clyde, let's move back to rescissions. This is something that has to be music to the ears of the House Freedom Caucus, because we're now talking about cutting $9.4 billion in this first rescission package, which I think you hope is the first of many.
Yes, I believe it will be the first of many. I'm looking forward to it. But to defund NPR and the other public broadcasting station, I think is great to eliminate much of the funding of USAID. In fact, I think USAID should pretty much be 90% put out of business. If you look and see what they're actually defunding, it's ludicrous that we as American taxpayers are spending money on things like continued Sesame Street in Iraq, or all these LGBTQ plus whatever alphabet you want to add programs across the world. That is not anything that our taxpayers want their money spent on. And so to eliminate these things in law through a rescissions package, I think is very important. And I believe this is going to be one of many to come. And I'm looking forward to all of them and approving all of them.
And this is particularly important because not only is it clawing back, taking back money that's already been allocated, but it will also set the stage for the appropriations process that you're involved in now. Because this is an annual process. People need to understand that money's allocated every year. But if you take money back that's already been allocated for these entities from last year, the last budget, then the likelihood is in this forthcoming budget, they're not going to be funded either.
That's correct. And I think what we have seen, the president's proposed budget is about $163 billion cut from the previous fiscal year budget, from FY25's budget. And I think that's a great place to start. But we need to be looking line by line at every solitary appropriation and saying, how can we make our government smaller and more efficient and cost less to the American taxpayer?
Now, the House Freedom Caucus is calling for quick movement on the rescission package. The Congress only has 45 days to deal with this once it comes from the White House. The Freedom Caucus is saying, hey, let's put it on the floor this week. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I would love to see it on the floor this week. I have not seen it on the schedule this week, but I heard that there's a potential that it will be on the schedule for next week. And that would be fine too. But it has to be done and be done quickly in order to maintain its privilege in the Senate, which means that it can bypass the Senate filibuster, which is absolutely critical, because I don't think we're going to get any rescissions done if we have to rely on a Senate if we have to pass the Senate filibuster. But because it only requires 51 votes in the Senate in order to get a vote in the Senate, then we have to act on this very, very quickly. And I think that, this week or next week would be sufficient, but it must be approved by the House and sent to the Senate so that the Senate can use its expedited procedures to approve it and send it back to the president for signature.
And we have just a couple minutes left, Congressman Clyde. I want to ask you a question because most conservatives do not go on to money committees. That's kind of it gives you a headache to have to go through all of this stuff. I mean, you're a veteran, business owner, Second Amendment advocate. I mean, you could be on judiciary on one of these other committees, but you've chosen to be on two budget-related money committees. Why?
I'm a fiscal hawk. Yeah, I came to Washington, D.C. to balance our budget and to get our spending back in order and start reducing this massive $37 trillion debt that we have, which will eventually financially break our country. People don't seem to really believe or take into account the fact that our bond rating now has been reduced again. And that there's a potential that if we ever get to the point, and I think we will get to that point if we don't deal with this financial crisis that we're in literally this year. If we don't deal with this, there will come a point when the Treasury Department has a bond failure, a bond auction failure. And if that happens, then our country will be literally start down the slide of fiscal collapse. And that can never be allowed to happen. So, I campaigned on bringing fiscal responsibility back to our government. Congress has not shown that in at least a couple of decades. And so if we don't, we're going to be in very, very dire straits. We could very well lose our status, our country's status as the world reserve currency. And that would be another financial blow to our country. And
it's a moral issue as well. As conservatives, Christian conservatives don't always think about it that way. But when you're putting debt onto future generations, and the Scripture speaks very clearly about the borrower being servant to the lender, and that's what we've set up as a nation. Yeah, Congressman, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be with you on Washington Watch.